welcome back.
Before we get started, I want you guys...
Under the blinding lights of an empty arena, a giant stands alone. The echoes of cheering fans fade into silence, replaced by the faint bounce of a basketball against polished hardwood. Shaquille O'Neal, 7 feet tall, 325 pounds of unstoppable force, once ruled this stage like a king. But behind every slam dunk and every roar of the crowd was a man fighting to be understood. How does someone larger than life carry the weight of greatness and still search for peace within? His story isn't just about dominance. It's about discipline born from pain, laughter used to mask loneliness, and redemption found far beyond the court. From the military housing blocks of Newark to the golden lights of Los Angeles, from glory to heartbreak and back again. This is the journey of a legend who learned that true strength isn't measured in rings, trophies, or fame. It's measured in heart. This is the story of Shaquille O'Neal, the giant who learned to be gentle. Shaquille Rashawn O'Neal was born in Newark, New Jersey in 1972, a city scarred by poverty and violence, but also by rhythm and resilience. His father, Joseph Tony, was a talented basketball player who struggled with addiction and ended up in prison when Shaq was just a baby. His mother, Lucille, a pillar of quiet strength, raised him with love but little money. In a world where giants were often seen as threats, young Shaq grew faster than everyone else, towering over classmates by the age of 13. But his height didn't make him feel powerful. It made him lonely. He was awkward, shy, and often bullied for his size. The only place he felt free was on the court, where the sound of the bouncing ball drowned out everything else. When Lucille married Sergeant Philip Harrison, a strict but honorable military man, Shaq's life changed forever. The family moved from base to base, from New Jersey to Texas, Germany, and back, living under the rules of the U.S. Army. Harrison demanded respect, discipline, and integrity. He'd wake Shaq at dawn, make him run drills, and remind him daily, "Excellence is not an act, it's a habit." At first, Shaq resented the toughness, but slowly he began to understand. This was love, expressed the only way his father knew how. On a humid afternoon in San Antonio, Harrison took him to a cracked basketball court and said, "This court will teach you who you are." And it did. It was there that a shy, oversized kid began to realize that his difference wasn't a curse. It was destiny. By the time Shaq reached high school in San Antonio, his size was no longer a burden. It was a weapon. At 7 feet tall with the agility of a guard, he dominated every game, shattering backboards and expectations. But beyond the showmanship, there was a teenager hungry to prove that he was more than just a big guy. In 1989, his life changed when LSU coach Dale Brown spotted him at a youth basketball camp. Brown saw not just the frame, but the fire. "You're not a man yet," he told Shaq, "but you've got the soul of a champion." At Louisiana State University, O'Neal became a sensation, a force that couldn't be ignored. He averaged double-doubles, broke records, and filled arenas with fans eager to see what this gentle giant would do next. But fame in college came with pressure. Reporters mocked his free throws, critics doubted his discipline, and expectations grew louder than ever. Still, Shaq played with joy, smiling, dancing, clowning even as he crushed opponents. It wasn't arrogance. It was freedom. For the first time, the world celebrated him not for his size, but for his spirit. Then came the moment that would change everything. In 1992, the Orlando Magic selected him as the #1 overall pick in the NBA draft. As he stepped onto the stage, lights flashing, cameras clicking, he didn't look nervous. He looked home. Reporters asked what he planned to do first. Shaq grinned that signature grin and said, "I'm going to make people smile." He wasn't just entering the NBA. He was stepping into destiny. A destiny that would soon make him one of the most dominant and unforgettable players the sport had ever seen. When Shaquille O'Neal entered the NBA in 1992, the league had never seen anything like him. He wasn't just tall, he was massive, fast, and magnetic. His first season with the Orlando Magic was pure electricity. shattered backboards, roaring crowds, and a rookie energy that reignited the league. Within months, Shaq Attack became a cultural phenomenon. Kids wore his jersey. Commentators called him unstoppable. But behind the highlight reels was a young man still learning how to handle the weight of fame. He was 20, playful, generous, sometimes reckless. Shaq wasn't chasing records yet. He was chasing fun. Music videos, commercials, rap albums. He was everywhere. And somehow, the more he smiled, the more people fell in love with him. Then came Los Angeles. In 1996, Shaq signed with the Lakers, joining a rising young prodigy named Kobe Bryant. Together, they formed a duo that would redefine basketball for a generation. It was magic and mayhem, beauty and chaos. Shaq's dominance under the rim, Kobe's precision and drive. Two stars colliding in pursuit of greatness. From 2000 to 2002, they conquered the NBA, 3 straight championships, MVP honors, and global superstardom. The Staples Center became their kingdom, and Shaq was its smiling king. He danced, joked, and destroyed opponents with ease. But under the laughter, tension simmered. Kobe's hunger for control clashed with Shaq's laid-back charisma. The press fueled the rivalry, and what had built an empire now began to fracture it. Yet in those years, Shaq was more than a player. He was a force of nature, a bridge between eras. He brought joy back to basketball, making the game feel larger than life. When the lights dimmed after the Lakers' 3rd title, Shaq stood on the court, arms raised, the crowd chanting his name. For that brief moment, he was untouchable, a living legend, unaware that the same light that crowned him would soon begin to burn. Greatness, no matter how immense, always comes with a price. For Shaquille O'Neal, that price began to show when the laughter faded and the spotlight turned cold. The dynasty he helped build in Los Angeles started to crack from within. Shaq and Kobe, once brothers in battle, became rivals in pride. Media headlines called it the feud that split the Lakers. Each interview, each quote, each subtle dig poured gasoline on the fire. Shaq was accused of being lazy, of showing up to training camps out of shape, of letting fame soften his hunger. He, in turn, felt underappreciated. The big man who made the dynasty possible, but who was suddenly being written off as expendable. In 2004, the unthinkable happened. Shaquille O'Neal was traded to the Miami Heat. The empire was gone. The city that once chanted his name now moved on to the next hero. He tried to reinvent himself, and for a time, it worked. In 2006, he helped Miami win another championship, silencing doubters once more. But age, injuries, and weariness crept in. The body that had carried the NBA for a decade was finally slowing down. Off the court, things grew darker. His marriage to Shawnee unraveled amid rumors of infidelity. The man who once seemed untouchable now looked human. Vulnerable, flawed, searching. He smiled on TV, cracked jokes, kept the clown mask on. But friends noticed the silence behind his laughter. He once said, "When I stop smiling, the world feels smaller." By 2011, Shaq retired. Not with tears, but with a quiet bow. Behind the fame and the fireworks, he had faced the one opponent no athlete ever truly defeats: time. When the noise of the arena finally faded, Shaquille O'Neal faced something far louder: silence. For the first time in his life, there were no fans, no cameras, no cheers. Just a man standing at a crossroads, wondering who he was without the game. Most stars fade quietly into nostalgia. Shaq refused. He turned his energy, his humor, and his unstoppable drive into something new: reinvention. He became a businessman, an investor, a voice on television, not just an analyst but an entertainer, using laughter to teach lessons, turning wisdom into comedy. Behind the jokes, there was strategy, a man building an empire, not from dominance, but from discipline. He went back to school, earning his bachelor's degree, then his master's, and finally a doctorate in education. He wanted to show kids from broken homes that knowledge could be power, and that strength wasn't only in muscle, And then came the part of Shaq the world rarely saw. The giver. He bought Christmas presents for families in need, paid off strangers' debts, walked into stores, and quietly handed out kindness like it was currency. He once said, "I used to want to be the best. Now I just want to be remembered for helping." In his post-basketball life, Shaquille O'Neal transformed from a giant on the court to a giant of the heart. He learned that redemption isn't about repairing a career. It's about rediscovering your purpose. From breaking backboards to building bridges, he found something the scoreboard could never measure: peace. Few athletes transcend their sport. Shaquille O'Neal didn't just dominate basketball, he reshaped it. On the court, his legacy is carved in concrete: 4 NBA championships, 15 All-Star appearances, 1 MVP, and a place in the Basketball Hall of Fame. But numbers only tell part of the story. Shaq's true impact lies in how he changed the game itself. He forced the NBA to evolve: stronger rims, new defensive rules, and a redefinition of what big man could mean. He blended size with speed, power with personality, and turned intimidation into entertainment. But beyond the hardwood, Shaq became something even rarer: a cultural icon. He crossed over into music, movies, business, and philanthropy with the same confidence he once brought to the paint. Kids who never watched basketball still know the smile, the laugh, the larger-than-life energy that could fill a room before he even spoke. His influence can be seen in every modern star who blends talent with charisma, power with empathy. He taught the world that greatness isn't about perfection. It's about presence, and his presence even now is unforgettable. From sneakers to commercials, from memes to memories, Shaq is everywhere. A man who turned every phase of his life into a story worth telling. He didn't just leave his mark on the game, he left it on the world. With time, the roar of the crowd faded, but something softer took its place: clarity. In his later years, Shaquille O'Neal began to speak not as a champion, but as a man who had learned what truly matters. He talked about regret. Not the games he lost, but the moments he couldn't get back. He admitted he wished he'd told Kobe Bryant how much he loved him before it was too late. When Kobe passed, Shaq's voice cracked on live TV as he said, "We'll never laugh again like that." It was the kind of pain that humbles even giants. He turned that pain into purpose, becoming a devoted father, a loyal son, and a mentor to countless young athletes. He often said, "The best thing I've ever been called isn't MVP, it's Dad." At home, he found peace in simplicity: cooking breakfast for his kids, calling his mother every day, sitting in silence and just being. For a man who once lived to be seen, he learned the beauty of living unseen. In kindness, in humility, in love. He used to measure himself by rings and records. Now he measures life by smiles created, hearts lifted, and lessons passed down. Shaq no longer plays to win. He lives to give. And in that quiet generosity, the giant found something he'd been searching for all along: himself. Under the dim lights of an empty arena, a familiar echo returns: the soft bounce of a basketball. Shaquille O'Neal stands alone once more, older now, but somehow greater. Not in height, not in fame, but in heart. He looks around at the silent seats where millions once cheered and smiles. Because for Shaq, the journey was never about the applause. It was about the lessons learned in the quiet after the noise. He taught the world that being big isn't just about size. It's about generosity. That strength isn't found in domination, but in compassion. And that real greatness isn't defined by how high you rise, but by how gently you lift others. Shaquille O'Neal's story is more than a basketball legend. It's a reminder that even the mightiest can be humble, that even the loudest can listen, and that even giants can have golden hearts, because in the end, every slam dunk fades. Every championship banner gathers dust, but kindness, that endures forever. This is the legacy of Shaquille O'Neal.